Hello and welcome to another Comb Glow. In this video, I'm joined by the cast at JT in the Dome as we discuss the debut album of artist Josin, titled In the Blank Space. Josin's album was released on January 25th, 2019 by record label BMG. If beautifully layered vocals over synthesized orchestral arrangements and dance beats sound interesting to you, then stay tuned for the next half hour as we cover our general feelings about the album, some of our favorites, and what we expect in the future for this new and upcoming artist. If you like what you hear, follow us on Facebook, get involved, and look for more album reviews and discussions on our YouTube channel or website, combglow.com. Now, without further delay, let's get to the fun part.
And we're off.
And we're off, and we're here, and we're live. Hello, world. This is the Glowcast. We hope you're having a fine afternoon, evening, or morning, wherever you happen to be in the world. This is Holmes 504 here. I got JT across from me. We got the Dome across the country. Guys, if you'd like to say hello.
Also known as Jared, Jess, and Cody.
Yeah, we're all
for our regular names.
I'm really trying to get the names to stick.
Well, JT, at least mine's a real name. That's a real
What, you're
thing.
suggesting that the Dome is not real?
Yeah, there's like tons of people that call you that. But
I heard somebody say the Teapot Dome scandal the other day, and I thought about you.
All right, so
Anywho,
so today,
speaking of the Teapot Dome scandal, today the Glowcast is going to be doing a little music review for you guys. We are obviously all pretty avid music fans, music heads. We're kind of, I wouldn't say that we're in the know or anything, but
we like music.
Appreciate music.
It's a big part of our lives.
Yeah, it's a big part of exactly where I was going with that. But today we're doing a little music review for you guys. We decided to start with Josin's debut album called In the Blank Space. If you haven't heard of this lady before, you would not be alone in that. She is relatively new. Like I said, this album just came out January 25th, 2019. Self-produced.
I saw that it was on BMG Rights Management.
Yeah, I think that's the label.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, when I say produced, I guess I mean she did all of the instrumental stuff and composition and stuff like that, put it all together. Her actual name is Arabella Rauch, I guess.
Yeah.
Rauch.
Unsure about the pronunciation here.
Yeah.
She is German. So, however German people would say the name Rauch.
No, that's Rauch. It's smoke
right.
in German.
Oh, so Arabella Smoke.
I believe, or smoked, perhaps. I believe is either way.
Oh, because of your Rauch beer or whatever.
Correct, indeed.
That's dumb. Anyways, so we're talking about In the Blank Space.
So, yeah.
So we just wanted to try and do a little music review for you folks. Give you guys our overall thoughts about it. We don't want to do like a track by track breakdown here. Just kind of want to give an overview, kind of what we felt, some general themes or whatnot, just to give you guys kind of a taste of it. And that way, if it catches your interest, by all means, check it out. Otherwise, just
don't.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's worth saying.
Listen to the podcast for reasons why you shouldn't. Okay. So that being said, I guess we can just start with overall feels of the album, guys. JT, why don't you start us off?
Well, I think I really like her music. It's very beautiful. Got some interesting like rhythms in there. A lot of very dreamy kind of synthesizer stuff going on. Lots of layering. My first thing that I thought of was if Sigur Rós and Tom York had a musical baby that turned out to be this beautiful German girl, then here you are. This is it.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. Very like got kind of the similar kind of eerie feelings to some of the songs. Definitely the comparison to Tom York is just you can't escape.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very much so.
Yeah. And her voice is beautiful. Yeah, I think overall it's pretty interesting, and yeah, I really like it for the most part.
Yeah, I
How about
think
you guys?
Teapot Dome,
yeah.
your thoughts?
I think that I think something worth mentioning that we didn't bring up is we're kind of going about this review in a different way, which you're going to do another one with albums that we are more familiar with, but this is something that's new to all of us, as again Jared mentioned, it's new to the world, and so it's not an artist that we go into a ton of backed up feelings about. This is, I felt like, I at the very least had never heard of her before. We decided to do this for the podcast. So, but yeah, I think that said, I've listened to it a couple times through now and listened to a couple of the songs independently several times, and it's hard to say how I feel. I think it's very well done. I think it's really beautifully orchestrated, and there's these cool subtle electronic elements where it still feels mostly non-electronic. I would definitely not call this music electronic music, but there's definitely some beats and some patterns and stuff here and there, like what Jess is saying. It's very layered and very delicate and kind of slow, and I don't know if eerie is the word I'd use, but yeah, definitely kind of dark room, pale, dim light kind of feel. So yeah, I liked it. I think I was saying before we started the podcast that my feelings are that maybe I'm not in the headspace that the album is sort of talking to and from, with this very slow, sad things, which typically I think that Jess and Jared would agree that I typically love slow, sad songs for some reason, but I don't feel like it really grabbed me. I liked it. I thought it was, again, obviously very well done, especially to be self-produced, if that's the case.
From the research that I've done kind of tells me, because there's not a whole lot of information about this artist out there, but from what I understand, yeah, she does all of the composition and
that's incredible. It's obviously very it reminds me. I know that are you guys familiar with Moses Sumney?
I am not.
No.
I thought when you went and saw, you went to a concert not too long ago. Maybe did you see?
Oh, I did. Yeah. When Grace and I saw, what's it called? Sylvan Esso. That was the opener. Yeah.
Well, so, it reminds me a lot of
that.
I
do know that, but not very well. I had only ever heard of that from you right before that.
Oh.
So.
Well, I would say to anybody listening to this, or to the both of you, that if you did like this, or if you want to seek out more or see what I would probably put in whatever genre and sort of school that you would put this in, I definitely think Moses Sumney is a contemporary of this, with all the delicate instrumentation and it being very orchestral and slow and kind of sad. And so I like it. I feel like I'm not giving a very punchy review, but I think it's because I don't feel very strongly about it.
I will say one quick thing about the sad thing. It's there is a certain sadness to some of the songs, but in the same way that some people think Radiohead is just sad, but that's not really true. I think this is not just that. It's it just goes so deep into things that it's kind of encompasses both positive and negative stuff, but that can come off kind of melancholy sometimes, but I don't think it's just sad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The overall feel, and the one word that kind of pops to mind is ethereal. That's kind of the word that I got from listening to all of this, because it's and then the more I listened to it, and I was trying to kind of just key on certain aspects, because it's a lot of it is just centered around her vocals, because she's got a beautiful voice, and it's the type of voice, and it's in the same class as Tom York's voice, I think. It's got that same vocal tone, and
she uses a lot
eerie,
of falsetto too.
Yeah, and Tom York has a way of getting a certain hollowness out of his voice. It's there, it's loud, but it's not a full, rich sound. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a voice stretched out over to, I guess, quote Lord of the Rings, not a little bit of butter spread over too much toast. It's kind of got this thin, stretched quality to it, which works really well. But, a lot of layered sounds, a lot of One thing or one phrase that came to mind, which I had not heard of before, but it's like an electronic orchestral thing where you don't have your traditional orchestral makeup or whatever, the instruments, but it still has that kind of big
like
full sound to it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it has this ethereal, eerie. So it kind of rides the line between those two, which I think is hard to accomplish sometimes. And, Tom York is obviously the one comparison that comes to mind there, which I think all of us have brought up already. So obviously I agree on that aspect of it. But to disagree with Cody, I guess, I took to it really, really well. And I mean, I like to just have music playing while I do things. So obviously this is great, like background music, I feel like, or reading music.
Yeah, we've been listening to it a lot reading, so I think maybe we're a little bit more familiar with it now.
Right, and I think songs like this need to grow on you. I think Radiohead is a good example of sometimes songs, you'll hear a Radiohead song and be like, and then you'll hear it for the 10th time and it'll click and you're like, all right, man, all right, this is making sense now.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. That's why I made mention that this is specifically an album that none of us had really known, and obviously, specifically, the two of you have listened to more than I have. But sometimes we're going to be more familiar than others. That's part of it. Like, I definitely think that's the case because, like I said, like I do think it's very well done. I think that there's moments when I would be listening to it that it would catch my attention. I was like, oh, what was that just happened? Or or it would switch to, like, the percussion would kind of come in a cool way, and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was
grabbed me.
The last kind of general overall observation I was going to make was just the way she tends to build the songs. It often starts. I mean, there are a couple that start with this kind of heavy driving electronic drum beat, which there are some weird dancey aspects to it, which kind of doesn't sound like it makes sense, but it's definitely there. But besides a couple of those instances, I really feel like it always starts really kind of stripped down, very basic, like her vocal track with a piano, and then she just builds, and so you get a lot of ins and outs and ups and downs with it. So, and
well, we should also mention that her parents are both opera singers, so she's like been surrounded by that type of music her whole life, so that definitely like plays
it is
into
operatic. There is
you can definitely tell that that's
an
influence there, even though she doesn't sing in an opera way. It's like almost, it's like the feeling and the emotion behind the words is almost more important than the actual words or something, right, in a similar way that opera is like that.
Yeah, I mean, just to note on that, I remember I did read that before I started really listening to the album, and I thought about it a lot as I was listening to how she drags the words out, because the way I would go about it, and I go about usually any song, I think most of us do, is, of course, you listen to the song first, and then you go back and look up lyrics. But I intentionally didn't look up lyrics for a couple listens, and I tried to figure out what was going on, and then but it's kind of hard because she drags them out, and it's kind of the same way that opera will drag it out, and you sing these words in ways that you don't actually say them. I don't think she's that quite so spot on as that, but it's not incredibly dissimilar, where it's like hard to understand what she's saying until you know the lyrics, and then it just suddenly makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, and I did notice that too. The lyrics, because I normally don't focus on lyrics a whole lot, to be honest with you, but I know that you two tend to look at those things before I would. I mean, did you see anything jump out at you as far as like lyrically?
Yes, there's a lot there. Okay. There's a lot with her lyrics. Yeah, for one thing, there's so many recurring actual words throughout the whole album, which I didn't expect that to be a thing. She literally talks about eyes in like at least half of the songs. Like the word eyes is in the songs. so that's kind of she in like themes of like the past, depth, the fleeting nature of life. These kind of things kind of go into all of her different songs. Most of them are the type of lyrics that like you really need to kind of sit with them for a while and like think about, more like poetry or something. You know, you don't just, they're not meant to like just get the first time reading them or something. With like maybe a couple of exceptions there, like that song Evaporation, which is probably one of my favorite ones. That one has much more straightforward lyrics, but I think maybe that's because she actually really wants people to understand that one. And she even said in some interview, like, that one is much more than just a song to her. That was her first experience with death. And it's all about basically the temporary nature of life and existence. And it's, you know, it keeps repeating, maybe all is made to evaporate. And, you know, it kind of gets to that whole thing we've talked about before of like the root of suffering is attachment, and that kind of, you know, everything is temporary. One really good lyric from that one is, ain't no fake picture we're looking at.
Yeah.
Which it's like, it is temporary, but it's also really real. You know what I mean? It's like, so yeah, that song is one of the only ones that you can read and like, at least for us, I feel like understand, you know, at least because we already have such kind of a Eastern religion kind of
Vibe.
lens towards
vibe.
things, then it's just like, oh yeah, sure, of course, this makes sense. But other than that, it's like there's really like multiple ways you can interpret most of her songs. But the whole album is titled In the Blank Space, and the song In the Blank Space, she has said that it's about trying to describe a state where you want to get lost in a space because that nothingness is full of everything. So that's like a whole, you know, she wants to it's funny because some artists really want their songs to speak for themselves, and then some will just come out and be like, this is what this means. And surprisingly, she seems to be one that will just explain it, which I wouldn't have expected from something so like
yeah,
kind of I don't know what the word is here, but
well, poetic, I think, is the way. I mean, people often don't like to explain poetry because the whole point is, if you could explain it, you wouldn't have written poetry.
Exactly.
You know, or, you know, it's the same thing. Well, I mean, I guess it's not exactly true, but some people view it in something of a lens, like, you know, you should have your own experience of it. You know, and I don't want to taint how you see the song with why I wrote it, because oftentimes people don't attach to it for the same reasons that you wrote it. So, I mean, I get both views. I like having the explanations because, to me, I don't feel like it ruins it when I listen to it different ways.
Right.
You know, because like that song Evaporation, I mean, that is probably the one that I like stood out to me the most, especially with the lyrics, because I think it's pretty clever with it being so simple. Like, there's not a whole lot to it. There's only a couple there's about 7 or 8 like couplets as how it's like written out. And I mean, so it's really simple. And I mean, and the lyrics are, again, it's not necessarily crazy, but it's like, one of the lyrics are, how you feel love when this life is so short. And, you know, we're all just stupid fools who want it all back. I mean, it's not like it's this deeply complicated meter or rhythm or, you know, plays on words or whatever, but then coupled with the ain't no fake pictures we're looking at and all this, it has like this, you know, the first lyrics are, I cry over my loss because it's been all winter's fault. So there's like it starts sad. It's like you're this lamentation of, you know, you're crying. She said it's about death and like viewing, you know, life, but then you end, you know, there's this, you know, maybe all is made to evaporate. So it's this kind of almost hopeless thing. But then at the end, you get the turn, which is, you know, ain't no fake picture we're looking at. And that kind of changes it to a almost, what's the word? Like, deeply like thankful or appreciative song. Right. It's like, you know, it's like this sudden, like, yeah, this is short. It's sad that we don't get more time, and that things aren't the way that we want them to be. And why is life so short? But then it's like, all right, but this is
But it's not ultimately negative. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And so I think that like flip at the end of the song was really interesting, and it kind of recontextualizes the whole rest of the song, which I get is not deeply profound, but it works, and I think it's
it's like it's simple, but it's profound still, or something.
Yeah.
Also, we should mention quick that's if we're talking so much about this song, it sounds exactly like the beginning of a motion picture soundtrack.
Yeah, I was going to
yes, it does.
But, yeah, I do think
can't get away from that.
Yeah, and I'll get back to that, but just to reflect on what both of you guys said, and from what I have looked at, I would agree. But yeah, the kind of abstract nature of the lyrics tends to match.
That's the word I was looking for before.
The composition of the songs as well. So it's kind of like this abstract. You're in the again, ethereal, in the blank space. Like you're kind of up in a kind of a different weird space, and I think kind of an interpretive space, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I think that those really work well together, and I think that is a sign of generally good musicians is all of your aspects of the music work well together, and the lyrics work with the composition, and yada yada yada. All of it kind of ties together, and I think she does a good job of doing that. But my one kind of drawback, or one thing I would say, is it does feel kind of one note all the way through. Like there's not a whole lot of range in what you're getting. Like what you are getting is good.
Yeah,
I feel like.
I absolutely agree. Yeah,
but it's kind of that, and we keep comparing it to Radiohead and Tom York in particular, because I think it's more Tom York than Radiohead, by the way.
Yeah.
Like if you listen to his solo stuff, I think it's going to be more similar to that.
It's the voice more than anything, coupled with the soft instrumentation, but that voice is, pretty.
But let's be clear right now, in no way is she Tom York, or am I saying that she's on that level? I'm just saying that she could be. It has potential for sure. Yeah. And it kind of rings of that, just kind of see where she goes. But yeah, it does feel kind of one note throughout.
It's kind of hard sometimes, especially of the first few times we listen to it. It's like, wait, which song is this? Because they sound so similar. But on the other hand,
that was my big problem.
There is something to be said for her creating like a whole album together that like has similar themes and similar instrumentation and what, like if you want it to be listened to just as a whole album, as like one thing together, then it's good. But if you want it to be really dynamic, then it could be a little bit more dynamic.
It definitely feels cohesive for sure.
It's definitely a cohesive album, meant to be an album together. But yeah, I agree that if there's a negative, it's kind of hard to discern between some of the different songs.
Yeah, that's
especially at first.
Actually, yeah, I'm gonna go back to mention Moses Sunday, and I wish that the two of you knew this, should perhaps have mentioned this earlier. Maybe you could have listened. However, and I hope that some of the audience knows who this person is, and if you don't, this was probably my favorite, or one of my very favorite albums that came out last year, which was, of course, I'm not going to remember the name of it now that I'm put on the spot here talking about how much I like it. But regardless, it does the same thing. It has these very but it doesn't get boring because the songs, I think, have more range. While it still feels like a cohesive album, and it does feel like a very specific element and a very specific atmosphere, I think he manages to do what this album doesn't, which is that it has a lot. It's dynamic. It's got more things going on with it. It has album songs that are very abstract and interpretational, and then it has like very direct love songs, and it has very direct like songs that are like lamenting death, and it has this just incredible range. Some of the songs are like Prince sensual, like this like R&B like slow jams, and then some are these like heartbreaking. And I don't mean to get too much into it because it's not the album we're talking about, but I was comparing it so heavily to that album And I like that album so much more. And I think that maybe is what is coloring my experience from this, which is this album just never hits a crescendo for me. It can never just blasts off. Like there's interesting moments, but but the performance is incredible. Like I know we keep mentioning Tom York, but it's just the vocal performance is so kind of in that high register the entire time that, and it's kind of wispy, like Jared was saying. It feels like all strung out and almost glassy or something.
Is there a particular track, like a standout track, you say you were, if somebody had never listened to this and you had to pick one song on the album, be like, this is the one I want you to listen to?
Oh, I would say probably Once Apart. I really like that.
Oh
one.
yeah, that's mine too.
Yeah, that was second on mine.
Or it's one of mine at least. Yeah.
I think that's where I would pick. I mean, I just think that it had a lot of the more interesting elements.
Mm-hmm. Once it gets to that middle part with the drums and like she's almost yelling at one point, it's kind of an interesting like rhythm pattern or something in the middle of that one.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, because my standout track was Feral Thing.
Yeah, Jared loves that song.
That's my jam. I mean, that's the song that got me into it in the first place. But it definitely has, if there's going to be any range or dynamic aspect to this album, I would point to that song because because we're sitting here talking about how ethereal and whatever it is, and abstract and whatnot, but that one is a track you can dance to, I think.
And that one's very Tom York too. That one sounds particularly
because it's got
York-ish.
that jazzy feel to it.
The synths of it are very
I mean I just think that one's definitely my favorite. And I guess another side note just to mention real quick is that she does have a lot of music videos that go with these, if anyone were wanting to check it out. And
they're pretty good too.
And again they matched very abstract kind of feel that the whole album has. And I mean, I'm sure she made that for a reason, kind of as a companion to it. So if you wanted to really get into it and really understand it more, I would recommend watching the videos.
Yeah, and they're beautiful.
Yeah, they're really
beautifully
good.
Shot. Yeah.
But yeah, and then another one I wanted to mention was that Evaporation, because that intro, man, I listened to that first minute and then I played motion picture soundtrack and it's like, is this legal? Can you actually do this?
Yeah, it's very similar.
But anyways, so I guess, I mean, I feel pretty good about, where we are with that. Kind of gave a good overview of it. Any closing remarks anybody wants to leave the audience with, or any
I just want to say
thing you'd like to see more of, see less of, comparisons, whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if she keeps going on, and she is going to go on tour too soon, so that should be interesting. If she's coming, she'll probably coming at least to Portland or DC.
See how
we don't know.
Translate live.
Sure.
Yeah, that could be interesting. But also, I'm interested to see if perhaps on other albums she will step out a bit into some other. We'll see if it gets a bit more dynamic, like a little bit more dynamic. But again, I don't want to too heavily criticize that, because maybe that's how she wanted this whole thing to sound, was like a one song kind of
right
thing.
Yeah.
But I will say also that anyone that can be compared to Tom York and still you have a positive album, like I would give this like a good rating of an album, that's a good sign. You know what I mean? Like if you're at all talking about Tom York and still standing out to that at all, like that's pretty good. You know what I mean? Like
you could be in the same sentence as Tom York and not doing bad,
and not just be like blasted for it,
or
you're
like
pretty
you're
good.
Cloning,
right.
Like,
yeah, exactly. Which I don't feel that about it. Yeah.
I think that honestly that kind of sums up how I feel, and I hate to be like, oh, I'm looking forward to what she does in the future, because I mean, God, she just released this album, but I think it just is, just completely full of like promise, and it's interesting and it's so well done. But yeah, I mean, and I'm going to keep listening to it. This isn't going to be the end. Like I feel like this is something that I want to come back to and put on a couple times, and maybe we can do some sort of reviews later on. We can review our reviews and see what we've changed or something. But yeah, I think it's good. I just don't feel whatever it is that you're supposed to feel and I really get. I mean, it just like again, aside from what I've talked about with the lyrics that I like, and there's other songs, like there's other lyrics that I really really like. I think there's cool things about the whole album, but yeah, I think. Oh, you know what we should do, guys? We should do Should we give it a numerical rating? How do you guys feel about numerical ratings?
Yeah, I was going to do that very last thing.
Oh yeah,
sure.
all right.
Okay.
That was well. Then I'll refrain from doing that until we're ready. But yeah, I'd say it's good. I just don't feel crazy about it.
Yeah,
I feel like seeing it live might be really like I could imagine like crying because it's so beautiful or something. You know what I mean? Like depending on how she does that live, could be good.
Yeah, I mean, my overall feelings is for a debut album. Like she did, I think it's a success. I don't think you could say anything but, yeah, obviously going to be keeping track of this artist in the future. Especially if she surrounds herself with like a band or something. I mean, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
I really liked it. Would recommend. One of the major things that occurred to me or phrase is it's great for cloud watching. If you were just sitting in the field on a sunny day, just watching
it's
clouds.
very dreamy, yeah.
And it's very like naturey too. Like
right.
Like for cloud watching or whatever, but some of the songs are definitely so connected to nature.
Yeah, if you're like canoeing or something, it'd be great to put on, But all right, well, so for our very closing thing here, give it a rating out of what do we want to do? Out of 5, out of 10?
Let's do 10.
10. Who's up first?
We should define things. So, is 5 like 5 is probably like not good, right? That's even though it's like
5 would be mediocre, right? Because it's in the
middle.
Yeah. All right. I'm just, because some people feel like, you're saying something. I'm not going to give it a 5. Don't worry. But I'm just, I'm just gauging how we feel here. Yeah. I don't want to go first. I want somebody else to go first.
Okay. I'll go first. I mean, I would give it an 8.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
If you like Radiohead and if you like Tom York's stuff, especially his solo stuff, it's definitely for you. If you are not into that type of music, you will fall asleep by the 3rd track.
Yeah. That's actually pretty much what I was going to say. I was thinking off the cuff. I was thinking 7, 7.5. So I'll just say 7. I think it's extremely well done. Like that's, I feel like I'm trying to be very careful and not seem like I'm giving it a negative review because I definitely think it's great. I definitely feel like my lack of enjoyment of it is related to my not having had some sort of emotional connection to it yet. Like it's all just been kind of something I've been playing and like, oh, that's cool. So yeah, maybe one day I'll listen to a song and it'll just catch me right, and I'll go back and just redevour the album and feel differently. But yeah, I feel like a good strong 7, like what we said before. If you can be like, hey, this is not dissimilar to say Radiohead or some other albums that or artists that you really like, and it's like a positive thing. I mean, yeah, as far as debut albums go, you got to be proud of this.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
she's got to be pretty proud of herself on this.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I'd say 8 out of 10 also.
8 out of 10?
Yeah. Because I feel like there's more to explore there. I like that it goes all the way deep into full, talking about consciousness. We're talking about the space between things, the full experience of life. I like stuff like that. So, yeah, 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Would recommend.
Would recommend.
All right. Well, guys, that'll wrap it up for us. Quick little review there. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you check out something new. Hope you learned something new today. For Holmes 504 here, I got JT, I got the Dome, and you are good to glow.
Check out In the Blank Space by Josin. Goodbye.
Good on.